Hi, and welcome to our product demo of My Food Program software for sponsors of centers. Here's what we are going to cover during this product demo. I'm only able to scratch the surface on all the great features that we have in the software using this demo. So if you ever want to have your own personalized demo live, so you can ask all your questions and get answers to those, feel free to contact us. But this will give you a nice overview of all of the features, so you can see if we are a good match for you. So I'm going to start with an overview, and then I'm going to go into specifics on the different functionalities of My Food Program: attendance and meal counts, menus and food production, participants and rosters, expense tracking, claims, and monitoring. So let's start with an overview. My Food Program is a web-based software, so you can access it using a web browser on any device that is connected to the internet. And this is what the dashboard looks like for a childcare center. So your customers, the centers that you sponsor, would then log in, and this is what they would see. So up at the top is a reminder about some of the important facts related to their operations. So the first one is whether their claim has been submitted for the prior month or not. So this one's in the OK status. So it's how many days are missing meal counts, how many participants are missing an income form or an enrollment form, how many days don't have a menu entered yet, and then how many staff at the facility need their training yet for this year. Then down here are all your clickable buttons, so this takes them to the different functionalities. So the little fork and knife here is for menu. Side-by-side entry, that's for attendance and meal count side-by-side. Participants and rosters is where they enter in the child information, the household information, the income forms, and sort them into rosters. Staff, this is for the different users that are at their center that may need access to the program. Site details for the center themselves is more of a read-only function. Sponsors can go in there and configure the program to work the way that it needs to in order to meet their state regulations. Closure and field trip allows the center to notify you if they are going to be gone during a meal service time, so that you don't go all the way out there and then find that there is no one there to monitor. Expenses are here for them to document their CACFP expenses to demonstrate a nonprofit meal service. Submit to sponsor is when they are done with a calendar month and ready to send their claim up to you in order to be processed for reimbursement. Reports give them all the information they need about attendance and meal counts, claims, participants, expense tracking, food production reports are in there, so just about anything you can think of. Record hours is here for the centers that need to do a time distribution study or tabulate the number of hours that their staff perform CACFP functions versus non-CACFP functions. And then visits is where they can see the results of the monitoring reviews that you have conducted as their sponsor. All right, let's continue the demo by talking about attendance and meal counts. So there are two ways that the attendance and meal counts can get entered into the system. The first way is by using a web browser. The other way is to use our mobile app. So I'm going to show you both of those. So first, the web app. To get to attendance and meal count entry, they click side-by-side entry here. The date defaults to the current date. Then they need to select a roster. So in most cases, the roster is just the classrooms. So we'll just pick one here. We'll pick twos. And then here, my only choice, you notice, is PM Snack. And the reason for that is that the meal counts are locked down to point of service. So right now, the only meal service that is open is PM Snack. So if we had logged in earlier today, you would have seen lunch as the only choice, or early this morning, it would have only been breakfast. So I'm going to click PM Snack. The first thing you'll notice is that I cannot check children in for a meal without checking them first in for attendance. And the reason for that is because a child can't eat if they haven't been in attendance. So we require that attendance to be done first. That said, the attendance records and the meal count records are completely separate. So meal records are not used to generate attendance records, and attendance is then not used to generate meal count records. A child can obviously be present without eating. There's lots of scenarios where that would happen. So the staff just go through and they check the kids in. If I had already done this once today, the present, these would already be checked. The staff only have to do that once. So I'm going to click Save, and that is how you take attendance and meal count for using the web app. So let me show you quick the mobile app. So if you search for My Food Program on Google Play or the Apple Play Store, you'll come up with two results. This one here with a white background is for conducting review visits. So this green one is what your centers are going to be looking for. It's for doing attendance and meal counts. So I've already got it installed, so I'm going to go ahead and open it up. And I'm going to log in. And you'll see that same word side by side, the attendance and meal counts side by side. So I click on that button. And then again, the date's up here, but I have to select which roster. So let's say that we are going to do the preschool kids. And again, my only choice is PM Snack because we are locking down the meal counts to only be entered at point of service. So I'm going to select PM Snack. Here's a list of the kids that are on the preschool 3s roster. Same situation, I can't click 8 until I click attendance. So I just go down the list and I say who's here and who's eating. There's an auto submit feature, so you can see this countdown that's happening down here. So if the classroom staff, heaven forbid, get distracted, right, while they're taking their meal counts, they set their tablet down, it will then save that data after 20 seconds and auto submit it, where they can click this submit button at any time. So we'll watch that one auto submit. So that one is submitted. If they do need to go in and change the data after it's submitted, that is completely fine. They would just scroll up to where they were before, and it will then allow them to modify that. So we say, oh yeah, actually Jace did not eat today, but Jackson did. So then they can click submit, and then that's changed. So then this data immediately appears on the web version. So if I go up here and I look at preschool 3s for PM Snack, you'll see there's the data that I just entered using the mobile app. So they are instantly connected to one another. So those are the two ways that they can enter attendance and meal count data. All right, the next session on our product demo here is menus and food production. So in order to get to the menu and food production functionality, the center would click here on this fork and knife icon to get to the menu. And what you see right at the beginning here is favorite foods at the top. Favorite foods is a full list of our food database, and then the center can select which ones they want to be their favorite. So that shows up on a drop-down list, and it makes menu planning much quicker. So rather than searching through the entire food database, they can just use their favorite foods. This menus part is their saved menus. So a lot of childcare centers are on a cycle menu. So they might have, week 1 Monday breakfast, week 1 Tuesday breakfast saved in there. Or they might just use descriptions. So you can see here they've got grits, peaches, and milk, oatmeal, bananas, and milk, cheese and crackers, those kind of things. So they don't, again, have to go through and find those items. So I will show you how saved menus work in the menu planning screen in just a second. So you can select the month and year here. And if we go backwards in time, we've got some information to share on these pages. So these icons show up. The little fork and knife means that a menu has been planned for that day, for that meal. If you also see this little 1, 2, 3 line here, that means that a meal count has also been entered for that particular meal. So you'll see the text is red if there's just a menu. It would also be red if there was just a meal count, and it turns green after you've got both a menu and a meal count. Couple other icons to draw your attention to. So this little juice glass here with a straw means that juice is being served that day. Our menu planning interface prevents the centers from adding juice more than once per day. This little wheat here, this will turn green when there's been a whole grain rich food item added during the day, and it is gray if that whole grain requirement has not been met. And then this little meat and eggs here means that a protein is being substituted for a grain. Again, our menu planning interface prevents a protein from being substituted for a grain more than 3 times in a week. If protein is being served in addition to a grain, of course, that can be done as many times as they like. So I am going to show you how to plan a menu, and we're just going to go up here into the future. So let's pick a breakfast on the 7th here. So in order to edit the menu, click Edit Menu. Appears description for print view. So whatever you type in this box, or the center types in this box, is what will appear when they export that menu and print it, for example, to put up on their bulletin board. So let's say that we are going to do milk, banana, and Cheerios. Here's where the saved menus come into place. So if you wanted to use a saved menu instead of planning one by selecting each of the food items, you would just select one of these and all the food items are automatically populated on there. But I want to show you starting it from scratch here. So up on the left-hand side here, you'll see each of the food components that is required for the particular menu or meal type. So this is breakfast, so we need milk, a fruit and or a vegetable, and then grain or meat alternate. Here is where your favorite foods come into play. So when you select favorite foods and they show up in this drop-down menu, if the center wants to search the entire food database, then they can just type a search term in here. So let's do milk first. We're going to say that we are doing 1% milk for ages 2+, whole milk for 1-year-olds. And then you'll notice behind each of the food items that there is a description of the units. And the reason that the units are important here is that the unit you select when you're planning the menu then populates over into the meal production record or food production record. So you're going to want to be sure that your centers are selecting the food item in the units that they want to use for their meal production records. So we are doing bananas. So we are going to do them in each. That means we're just counting bananas instead of counting pounds of bananas. And then here we'll put in Cheerios. And you'll see that we actually have 5 results for Cheerios. And why is that? We have plain Cheerios in cups, plain Cheerios in pounds, plain Cheerios in ounces, and then we also have multigrain Cheerios in cups and in pounds. Now the food database only contains foods that are credible on the Child and Adult Care Food Program. So for example, if we searched for, I don't know, pie, well, we'd get pie crust because that's creditable. Let's say we search for donut. You can see no results found. That is because donuts do not count on the food program. And then just one other thing, if you put in WGR, that is the designator for whole grain rich foods. So you'll see anything with a WGR behind it, that's what's going to meet the requirement for having a whole grain rich food. So we are actually, so Cheerios is a whole grain rich food. So let's say we're going to do that in pounds. All right, so our breakfast is planned. We are doing bananas, Cheerios, and milk. So let me just change this description really quick. Click Save. So now after you have saved a menu, you can then create a food production record to go with that. So you are unable to create a food production record until you have planned a menu, and that's on purpose because we wouldn't know which food items and in which units that we wanted to use to create the food production record. So to create a food production record, you click Edit Food Production. Up at the top, you'll see number of infants, and you don't need to put anything in here because, again, infants aren't eating, they're eating their infant food, not the non-infant food. You'll see 2 columns here. One is number of participants, so that's how many you're going to be estimating or you're going to be preparing for. Then you see our estimate. So these numbers, if you are doing an estimate or a meal planning, food production for the future, these will be based on schedules. So it'll add up the number of children in each age range that are expected to eat this meal on this day. So we're expecting 23 children in the 1 to 2-year-old range, 14 preschoolers, 3 school agers, and then 1 that's older. So we're going to put in, we'll just mimic those numbers and say that we're preparing those quantities. Down here, the milk age ranges are slightly different from the food age ranges because those 1-year-olds need whole milk and the 2-year-olds and older need 1% milk. So we actually have to divide that out. So we'll just copy these numbers over. And then what happens is that When I click Estimate Production, what the system does is it multiplies the portion size for each age range by the number of children that are in each age range and gives you a number. So it says that we are going to use 1.75 pounds of Cheerios, 29.5 bananas, 3/4 of a gallon of whole milk, and 1 3/4 gallons of 1% milk. So this is where the food service staff is going to adjust to be actual numbers. So 23.5 bananas is kind of strange. Let's say the kids were also really hungry for bananas, so we used 35 bananas. And then we used more than 1.75. We just rounded up to 2, finished off that second box of Cheerios. All right, so then we click Save, and you'll see that the food production is here. Okay. Now, in order to get the food production report, then you go over to Reports and down to, there's a couple different kinds of reports there. Actually, that was a breakfast, wasn't it? And then here is where the report will come out. So it will say, again, here's the numbers from our food production record. So we use 2 pounds of bananas, 2 pounds of Cheerios, 35 bananas. Milk, here's the description for print view, and then here are the estimated counts in each of the age ranges. Now, once you take a meal count, then you'll see the actual count based on meal participation, just like it says. The numbers will populate here. So then your state agency can do the math and make sure that each of the children, or enough food was prepared for each of the children. All right, it's time to talk about participants and rosters. So to get to that functionality, your center would click here on participants and rosters. What you'll see at the top is a list of the rosters. You can have as many rosters as you want, and participants can be assigned to more than one roster. A roster is just a way to sort children. So for most child care centers, it's their classrooms, but there are also other ways to do it. So you could have a Monday roster, a Tuesday roster, a Wednesday roster, and so on. You might have a summer roster and a not summer roster. You can sort them any way that you want. Down here, you'll see the names of the participants along with their ID, the roster that they're assigned to, their birth date. If you've entered guardian information, that'll be here. And then their city and the status. Up here are some more buttons. So upload participants is if you're going to use a spreadsheet. So perhaps you're switching softwares. You can export your participants from another software and then import them in to My Food Program. If you need to add a child to an existing household, for example, there's a new baby in the family and you want to add them on, but you want to keep that household structure in place, then you would click Add to Existing Household. If you've got a new family that enrolls in care, then the center would want to click on Add New Household and sort of start from scratch. And then if there's a need to print a participant list, you would be able to generate a PDF here. So I'm going to show you how to, just from scratch, we'll just add a new household. Up here is address information. So if you want to store their address here for household contact procedures, you're welcome to do that. If the center has another way to store that information that's easy for access and works for the CACFP household contact procedures, you do not have to enter an address here. So same with guardian. So if you want to put in parent and guardian information, you can, but again, you're not required to enter that. So if you were going to add a guardian, you would put it in here, first name, last name. Again, if you want to put a phone number and an email address in here, that is certainly here for your use, but is not a requirement. What is a requirement is to create participants. So to add a new participant, you click Add Participant, and there's a few required fields. So first name is a required field, last name is a required field. Then birth date. So we need to know which age range to place them in for any license capacity checks and also for those age range estimates for the meal pattern. So let's say that this is an infant, April 1st, they were born. And then start date is the first day that you're going to be claiming the child, or the center is going to be claiming the child for the CACFP, so we'll say it's tomorrow. If they withdraw, you can designate that withdraw date here, not a requirement. Gender, also not a requirement. Okay, status, you've got active, inactive, pending, and incomplete. Active, that means all the paperwork's in and they're good to go. They will appear on attendance and meal count screens. Inactive is if a child no longer goes to the center, whether that's permanently or is taking a break, but you don't want that participant to show up on attendance and meal count anymore. So then you would set them to inactive. The other one's pending and incomplete. The children still show up on attendance and meal count screens. It's there for you as a sponsor to track. Perhaps incomplete would be, we're missing an enrollment form, or we're missing, an income statement, something like that. Pending, maybe you're waiting on something before you can approve their participation. Maybe you're waiting on a special diet statement or something to that effect. So for this one, we're going to set them as active. Here you can put in any allergies. If you do that, a little warning will pop up on the mobile app when the staff take attendance and meal counts to remind them that there is a child with an allergy on there. Roster assignment, that's where you say which group they're in, and again, you can select more than one if you wanted to. This one's a baby, so we're going to leave them in the infant room. If you want to use My Food Program to do your racial identity and ethnic reporting for the USDA requirements, you can do that here. Just enter in their race and ethnicity. This down here designates whether the child is to be included in the claim or not. So there are instances where you would need to track attendance and meal count information for a participant, but you wouldn't actually want them to go to a claim. For example, you need to track actual attendance for license capacity checks, but it's a child that brings their own food and it's not related to a medical disability, then maybe you don't want to include them in the claim. Receive subsidized care, that's if you need to track the number of children that are receiving state subsidized care separate from your claiming percentage. After school program is a whole separate program that can be also run in child care centers. So if you want to run the at-risk after school meals program within a child care center, we can accommodate that. If you check foster child here, then the child will be automatically placed in the A free category, regardless of what the household income eligibility category is for the rest of the household. Participant notes is there for your reference. Then these are automatically assigned IDs after you save them. Participant schedule, so this is where those estimates come from that I was showing you on the meal production record. So how do we know if they're going to be there on Monday for breakfast? It's this screen right here. So let's say this child is here from 8 o'clock in the morning to 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And they come Monday through Thursday and they eat breakfast, lunch, and afternoon snacks. So we click save and they've got a schedule in the system now. Then this is where you would add an enrollment form. So you would go in here and you can do the first date and last date if you want to upload a scan, like a PDF of the enrollment form, you can do that here. Infant meal notification, if you wanted to use this to track whether the center or the parent is providing the formula and who is providing the solid food source. Again, if you would like to upload a document, that would be a place to do it. And then special diet statement. So if you have a child with a special dietary need and you want to use our system to track that, that is absolutely a possibility. So start date, end date, whether it is related to a disability, reasons, food omitted, food substituted, and then if you would like to store the scan of the document, you can do that here as well. So then we click save. All right, our next topic is expense tracking. So this is where the centers would enter their food expenses and other allowable CACFP expenses to demonstrate a nonprofit meal service. To get to expenses, the center just clicks on expenses. And you can see here there's one receipt in here. We'll show you how to add another one. So click on the blue Add Expense button. So you put the date that the expense was incurred. So let's say we did a shopping trip on 7/19. And then here you select the category. So let's say that this one is food. And this one was at Costco. And the amount was, let's see, $145.67. Applying the space-time percentage as if you are using a sort of a distribution ratio to allocate things like rent. So if they are allocating 10% of their rent to the CACFP, then they would put in 10% for their space time percentage, and then you would apply it. But since food is all CACFP, you would put that in there. Upload image, you would click choose file and then find the scan of the PDF or the photograph of the receipt for additional backup. Then they click save and it's added to their list. Now this populates over into reports that will add up the expenses for the year so that again they can demonstrate a nonprofit meal service. So that's all there is to adding and tracking expenses. All right, the next topic in our demo is an important one. We're going to talk about claims. So we're going to show how the sites send that attendance and meal count information up to you as a sponsor, and then how you as the sponsor go ahead and create those claims. So once the month is over, then the center needs to go to this button, Submit to Sponsor, and select the month and date up here. You'll see a list of the dates, the meals, whether a menu is entered or not. It'll say true if it is and false if not. The total meal count for that, and whether a food production record has been created. So the center goes down here. Now there's two options. Check for errors allows them to look for any errors for meals that are going to be disallowed and gives them an opportunity to see those errors and then correct them. Submit to sponsor goes straight to the sponsor. So I'm going to go ahead and click check for errors and look at that validation, or let that validation go ahead and go through. So what the system is looking for right now is does each of the participants have a valid enrollment form? What income eligibility category are they in? It's adding up all the attendance and meal count records. It's looking at anything that would have been disallowed by the sponsor, all those kind of things. So if you want to see a list of the errors, you can find this document on our website. If you go to training and then select childcare centers, you'll see this one here. So this is a list of all of the errors that our system is looking for as it's going through claims validation. It tells you how that error gets triggered, where to get details on that, and then what to do next. So the system is done now looking at all of those different meals, and it's come up with a few errors to look at. So we've got meals claimed for children who are not enrolled. So that means they don't have an enrollment form. They have an expired enrollment form. Meals served to children over 13, and then no whole grain rich food served on that date. So you can see the error count here. If the site wants to look at where those errors are, they would actually go to the report section and look at one called disallowed meals. So they select the month. And then you'll see here that there's a list of all of the meals. So here's the date, here's the meal, the status being disallowed, what the exact error is, and then who it applies to. So you can go through and look at these. Most of these are for a child who looks like has an enrollment form issue. There's one here for no whole grain rich food served on this date. So they go back and look at what happened on the 13th. And then here, Zachary Zeller must have turned 13 right here on June 13th. And so his meals will be disallowed for those future dates. So that's where they would go to look for that. When they're done resolving any of those errors that are legitimate, then they would click Submit to Sponsor. When you do that, a dialog box pops up here and it says it's going to finalize the meals for the month and you won't be able to change it anymore. Are you sure? And that is exactly what happens. So after they click OK, then the meal counts and attendance and menu information is all locked down. So your site can no longer edit the attendance and meal counts, the income forms, anything that might affect the claim is now locked down. So once this validation is done, then you at the sponsor, you have to log in as a sponsor then to create the claim. So we're going to go ahead and log in as a sponsor user here. And this is a dashboard I haven't seen yet, but this is the sponsor level dashboard. And so to create claims, you go here to the claims tab and you'd select the month. And then we're going to click create claims, and any of your sites that have submitted to sponsor will generate a claim. So if you've got 100 sites and 60 of them have already submitted to sponsor, then we're about to create 60 claims. This is just a test site, and so we're just going to create one claim. But we click Create Claim, and again, it's going to go and look at each of the sites and figure out who has already submitted to sponsor. And if they have, we'll create a claim. If they haven't, then we won't. So you can see here that it created the claim for you. If you click on this, you'll get information. So site identification number, information about each of the meals that are going to be included in the claim. All right, our last topic for this product demo is monitoring. So I am going to show you how to use the mobile app so that your reviewers can do their review visits on a tablet or a phone or whatever device they want, and then how that interfaces with the web view. So first, let's take a look at the Google Play Store here. If you search for My Food Program, you'll see two mobile apps. This one with the green background is for attendance and meal counts. The one here with the white background that says for reviewers is to do those review visits. So I'm going to go ahead and open that app, and I'm going to log in. And what you'll see here is a list of your sites. So this particular sponsor has 4 sites here listed, so we'll just pick one. And then here's a list of the forms that you can fill out related to reviews. So we are happy to load the form for that your state agency has you use, or if you have a custom form, we're happy to add that one too. So I'm just going to show you this generic form and how that works. So here are the main categories that the reviewer would go through to enter information. So they just click through these and answer the questions. Go through and click on what they're going to be looking at. When they're done, then they click Submit Form. If they've forgotten to answer questions, which in this case we haven't answered very many of them, it'll prompt them to go ahead and go back and answer those so that we're sure that we have a complete form. So once that is submitted, then it automatically gets linked on the web app to the site itself. So let's take a look at what that looks like. Let's look at visits. Here's a visit that we logged earlier. And down here has information about this particular visit. So if you click on Audit Report, this has all the answers that your monitor typed in then on that mobile app. So you can see the words that I typed in here, anything that's met. Here's one that's not met and what's happening. Probably need a disallowance for that one. And it goes through each of the categories then from that mobile app. If you would like to, you can also upload photographs from the visit. So I've seen sponsors upload photos of the meal that they observed, or maybe the location of your And Justice for All poster, a facility license, things like that. So this one happens to be a ingredient label from some whole grain rich crackers that they're serving. So this would help the sponsor then document that the foods that the center is serving indeed meet that whole grain rich requirement. So you can add whatever photos you want to that. You can also upload a document here. So if you want to do paper review forms, but you want to store them in My Food Program, this is where you would do that. So you could choose the file, and then you could find a scan of that form that you filled out, and that can be stored in there as well. So that is how you do monitoring visits using My Food Program.